What's up, sports fans? This is Igor, your host for Boys Couch and Ball, inviting you all to another superior episode of Boys Couch and Ball. We decided to mix things up a bit, so we are gonna separate the different sports we cover into different episodes, and now we are gonna do rugby. All the usual suspects are in the studio today, except for Linda, who's taken a psychological role with the New Zealand rugby team, seeing as they got a bit humiliated this weekend. So we've got Barrett in, and we've got Chris in, and we've got Henny in. So guys, just first off, before you get serious, how was your weekends?
Well, Igor, thank you. Yes, it was a very nice weekend. Had a couple of rounds of golf. Went game watching, looking for my ball in the bushes everywhere.
So that you drew your inspiration from McIlroy's
Yes.
couple of rounds.
Yes. When looking, I saw all the beautiful scenery. I looked at every single bush on the golf course, so really got my money's worth. And yes, the brandy flowed, the braai vleis was perfect again. So yes, nothing to complain about in Africa.
Barrett, your weekend?
Yes, it was very nice. Long weekend, celebrating Women's Day on the Friday. WhatsApped all my bitches to say thank you for what they're doing
All the
in
salad.
this country. Yeah.
Surprise.
Nah, I digress. No, we went to the farm for the long weekend. It was very nice. The Premier League started in full flow, which is always a welcome sight on a Saturday evening. And awesome rugby. Yeah, awesome sports weekend, awesome weekend in general.
Chris, do you want to add to that, or don't you really have anything new to say? Because you're studying at the moment.
Oh, well, yes, exactly. My weekend wasn't that great. I had to do a lot of studying, but I wouldn't skip my Saturday braai, so I braaied on the Saturday. But yeah, overall good sporting weekend. I watched obviously all the rugby. Good rugby and lekker weekend.
So, since everyone has rugby in their mind, let's start chatting about rugby. So the first game of the weekend, Australia versus New Zealand in Australia. Yeah, in Perth. Mm-hmm. In Perth, and New Zealand getting clobbered by 21 points. I remember last week I asked Chris, I don't think the question is Australia going to win? I think the question is by how many points New Zealand are going to win. And it turned out not to be the case. So I think for me, one of the big flaws that New Zealand had was playing Richie Mo'unga at 10 again and playing Barrett at 15. Every time Barrett got the ball, he looked dangerous, but he didn't get it as often because he only got it on being the second or third receiver and not from the base of the scrum every time. What do you guys think?
Yes, I definitely agree with you. And also, the big part of that equation is you're missing out on a world-class fullback.
Ben Smith.
Yes.
Has to play on the wing now.
He has to be there. He's still good on the wing. I mean, he is world-class, but he's just next level in fullback. He is so good under the high ball. He is so calm under pressure. Not that Barrett is bad at fullback, but just his skill set is much better at number 10. And it is a pity for Richie Mo'unga because he is also such a talent, but yeah, the way the results have gone with him at number 10, the people just can't wish to include him anymore. Like, we have to start playing Barrett at 10.
And then Chris, because we chatted last week and we thought, okay, maybe Steve Hansen is looking at playing Mo'unga at 10 against South Africa because we've got a pretty big flaw in Andre Pollard, which is going to run over Barrett like he did the 3 previous games against New Zealand. But now they get playing against Australia, much weaker opposition up front. You're going to have a lot more go-forward ball than against the South African side. And why does Hansen want to try this out now, 2 months before the World Cup? This wasn't the tactic he employed leading up to the World Cup.
Well, I think Steve Hansen likes playing a tactical right winger. So it was always Ishmael Dag in the past, and now after he retired, he's playing at Ben Smith at 14. And also the fact that Damien McKenzie is injured. They don't have a proven fullback at international level, except a bit of maybe Jordy Barrett, but he's only played like 10 tests and he's not on the best of form lately. So that's what I think's the main reason for that. I don't agree with that decision. I would way rather play Ben Smith at fullback and just play a powerful running winger like Severies or any of the other 20 hard running wingers in New Zealand. So yeah, but on the other hand, let's not stay away from the fact that New Zealand got a red card at the end of the first half, and they played obviously a huge part in the game. They were in the game before halftime. I think it was the difference between scores were like 3 or 4 points. So that obviously played a huge part. So I don't think we should take that much from this game. They'll be back next week and we'll see what they're going to do.
And Henny, about that red card, I watched some of Australia's tries, and a lot of those tries actually came not from overlaps in defences, but from poor defending. New Zealand missed 20 tackles in the first half, which was horrendous. I can't remember who the player was, but he scored from a pickup next to the posts, and there was just no pillar in sight, which is very, very much unlike New Zealand. So how do you think New Zealand got to losing this game?
Well, Igor, I think a couple of things. I do think that Steve Hanson's selection of Byrne Barrett at 15 and Richie Mo'unga at 10, I do think it's something that could work, but it needs a lot of time, not 2 months before a World Cup. Secondly, we have to be honest with ourselves. I'm not saying New Zealand would have won the game, but the red card did have a big influence. Second half, if you're 14 men for that period of time, defenses get tired because you're basically tackling for extra man. I think that also has a big influence on the game. But I think New Zealand's biggest problem at the moment is the fact that their forwards are getting bullied by teams they shouldn't get bullied by. I think Australia did well against Argentina, but they got hammered up front by the South Africans. Okay, South Africa is probably one of the 2 best packs in the world. But if you look at teams like Ireland and England, they're also going to choose big forwards. And I think that is the way the world has seen now how to beat New Zealand. I think that's how teams are going to go into it. I think New Zealand have been very reliant on Brody Retallick. He's the best player in the world. Since his injury, I think the Australians bullied the New Zealand up front, and that's not. You don't see that. I don't think I can recall a game in the last 10 years where New Zealand has been bullied by Australia in the forwards. They were dominated up front. Australia had most of the ball possession. And I think that was the big problem. I think New Zealand's biggest problem at the moment is they do not know who their blindside flanker is going to be. I think New Zealand's, since Jerome Kaino, they haven't found someone that can lock down that position. Liam Squire played for them for 2 years. Now he's been dropped out of the team. They play with 2 open sides in Sam Cane and Adi Savia. And I think they really lacked physicality in the forwards this weekend against Australia. I think they need to pick a out-and-out blindside winger, which will help them in ball carries. But honestly, I can't see world-class blindside winger in New Zealand at the moment. I think that and Brady Retallick had a big influence on the game.
And I think, that's very true. And then moving on from New Zealand, who got bullied, the South African pack seems to be on an absolute rampage at the moment. I mean, we don't have a very good backline by any means, but our forwards have been absolutely thrashing other sides forwards. We destroyed Australia up front, we took it to New Zealand up front, and now we gave Argentina a royal hiding up front this week, and I think we got 3 or 4 scrum penalties. And I have to say, I've been a massive critic of people like Trevor Nyakane and Tendai Mtawarira, because Trevor didn't have the best of seasons when he got into the South African setup, and Tendai is getting a lot older. But I mean, they absolutely destroyed that Argentine pack. Did you agree, Barrett?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And the refreshing part for me is both our whole bench, they still dominate the scrums. You aren't relying on one, let's say Stephen Kitsoff, who's one of the best props in world rugby. We aren't relying on only him. We have two forward rows, 6 players, whether they play with each other or whoever they're playing with, they can dominate the scrums. And that, in the light of South Africa's game plan, that is a must. And it's really refreshing to see the scrum pack being so good at such a crucial time before the World Cup.
Yeah, I think we can actually say, I think out of the world's, let's say, 10 best props, we probably have 3 or 4 of them. 3 or not 4 of them. If you look at all the other top 10 nations, I think both our sets of front rowers, hookers included, are much better than any of the Australian front rowers that they have. I think Michael Cheika would go on a clown murder spree to get someone like Volku Low or into his team, or even someone like Bongi Mnambi into his team, which is really saying something, because Bongi is not the best and most attractive of hooker opportunities. But we spoke last week and we thought the game wasn't going to be as close. I don't think any of us I think only one of us predicted a bonus point victory for the Springboks. Did it come down to how good the Springboks were, or did it come down to how bad Argentina was?
Well, Igor, I think it was a bit of both. I do think that I was a big advocate of Argentina playing well. They did well in Super Rugby. I had high hopes for them going into the World Cup. I still think they'll be much better at the World Cup. But I also thought that we saw it in Super Rugby that their scrums were a problem for Argentina. But I thought that the inclusion of overseas-based players, a couple of props will really help them. But that hasn't been the case. Their props overseas have been poor, to say the least. And they've been dominated by South Africa, Australia and New Zealand. And that essentially has been the Achilles heel throughout this whole competition. I do think that our tight 5 have been amazing. We've got so many options, a lot of depth in every single position. So it bodes well for our chances at the World Cup. I do still think that New Zealand will be the favourites going into the World Cup. They are a team that knows how to win. They know how to play big moments. But yes, for South Africa, it's been a great tournament. Rassie Erasmus has to get a lot of credit for what has happened this last 2 years that he's been in charge. If you think 2 years ago, we got 50 against New Zealand. Now, the last 3 times we've played them, there's no difference in the points scored for or against. So yes, I think he has been a revelation, and he has based it on traditional South African rugby about dominating the set pieces and really building off that platform. So yes, I think South Africa going forward has been a very positive sign for us.
Just to add on that, I do believe South Africa made a huge statement in this rugby championship, especially this weekend, absolutely annihilating Argentina. And it's not easy going over there and beating them quite considerably. So for me, they proved that they are one of the favourites for the World Cup. With that pack, you can dominate any team on the day. And one of the more promising things this weekend was Andre Pollard playing an absolute cracker of a game. So with that pack and with our Flav in brilliant form, we're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
And also, actually, a player that really surprised me. I thought it was a joke when we called him in from Europe. I was a complete skeptic because the guy weighs like 40 kilograms. He's fast, but I don't know if that's enough for the modern game. But again, this weekend, Chesum Colby, another solid game. And I really hate to say it, but he's probably locked down that position now. And I don't know. How do you guys feel about that?
Yes, and I definitely think he's one of the first names on the starting sheet. If you look at the South African game plan, Pollard and Villy are the creators, and he's the outlet that they're trying to give the ball to in a bit of space. Because you all know Colby in a bit of space can do wonders. And his weakness has always been his high balls and the tackling. And that's, I think, the difference that he's shown in the past 3 or 4 matches is that he's solid on defense. I mean, against All Blacks, he made Rico look like a high school boy. And under the high ball, he's shown true grit. And he's as short as he is, he's caught all of them.
And I think really, I watched an analysis of the game the other day against New Zealand and the try that we scored, which was quite an interesting setup because we stretched the New Zealand defense. I think we started from a set piece and we stretched the defense to the right hand side of the field and then to the left hand side. And then if you watch Willie Leroux, he's sitting behind the ruck at the 50-meter tram lines, and he doesn't touch the ball for the next 3 or 4 phases. And then he only comes into the line, creating an overlap when we get into the opposite sides 15-meter line. And I think that really focuses into Rassi's plan, because that's the wing Colby was on. And I think Rassi knows if that guy is 3 or 4 meters, he can create something, and he did. And obviously, we scored from that. And when go forward ball is not going to be the issue for us in this World Cup. We're not going to face a team that we're going to struggle to get go forward ball with. Maybe Ireland, if we get them, if we finish second in our group, we'll get Ireland in the quarters, I think. But otherwise, I can't really see England with Marco Vunipola still injured and still in doubt for the World Cup. I can't see them really showing up. When the Wales got trashed by a very, very good England side. Wales was actually the number 1 in the world for almost a day after New Zealand's loss, and then got smacked by England.
Yes, I think England just went to that match with a chip on their shoulder, with something to prove, and you could see it on the players. They were keen. And they showed true grit, and they got a good result. And they didn't even play with Owen Farrell and Mauro Itoje.
Yeah, which is the two by far the best players.
Yes, yeah. So this World Cup, it's wonderful. It's going to be so open. Right now, it's like the Premier League. There are probably 6-7 teams that you can't write off. It would be silly to write it off. And no, England just put in a solid performance. Their bench was incredible. New players like Tulangi.
Not a new player, but a player who actually doesn't have an injury for the first time in 7 years. He might actually have more time this year where he's fit than times he is injured, which will be great.
So Eddie Jones is also a fantastic coach, doing something right with that England squad. I'm excited. For the World Cup.
Yeah, I think this is going to probably be the most open World Cup since the 2007 one, actually.
Yes, you got definitely. I think there's 4 or 5 teams that can on their beat anyone. Yes, I'm just excited for the Springboks doing well, peaking at the right time. But yes, you can't write a team like England off. Wales, Ireland will be on good form, and outside shout the Australians. The Australians, they've done well in the past in World Cups. They always seem you can't. Huh?
Don't say it, Danny. Don't say it.
Ik gaan het zeker zeggen. Hulle is rarig decent. The Australians, they've done well in the past. They've always done well at World Cups, and also had a good performance against New Zealand. I won't count them as the top 3 or 4 favourites, but if they can actually have a pack that stands still with that back line and the inclusion of James O'Connor at 13, the ball playing outside centre, which I think they lacked in the last couple of games, playing 2 big centres. I think their team actually looks quite balanced now. But again, they will be very injury reliant. If they have any injuries in their tight 5, I think they will struggle. But yes, very exciting times in rugby. The dominance of New Zealand over the last 7 or 8 years. We can't say it's come to an end, but maybe in 3 or 4 months' time we can actually say that.
We have to do a Currie Cup roundup. Just the scores, eh? For the viewers. Okay, anyway, the Western Province played the Pakisa Pumas.
Who wants to bet me R5 that the Western Province lost?
They actually beat them 45 or 14. But yeah, Siya Kolisi made his comeback. He played like 45 minutes or something. A very, very quiet game. But he had a try assist, so obviously all the newspapers said Kolisi with the comeback making a try assist. But anyway, yes, let's go on. And then after that, the South Sea Sharks played the Cheetahs. They beat them 27-20 with a last minute try from Kobus van Wyk. And in the last game, the Lions played the Blue Bulls. The Blue Bulls beat them 31-26 with 14 men for basically a full half. So
red card in the 16th minute, I think.
Yeah.
2 yellow cards in the second half. A shocking Blue Bulls side still put off the win against the Lions.
Against the Lions. Absolutely. I think if you want to bet in the Currie Cup, I think you really have a better chance of winning if you go and play roulette for the weekend rather.
Interesting thing is the Greek was leading the table on 15 points.
the cup-
So yeah,
I saw
the Currie Cup is coming home to Kimberley.
I saw a article in News 24 saying the Currie Cup is going to the big hole. And I saw it wasn't an article about Kim Kardashian, so I was quite intrigued. And then I saw the Griekos are leading the Currie Cup, which is quite astounding actually. Even since they've lost the likes of Roku Jansen in recent years and Hilton Loberts, ex-Springbok, which they lost as well. I don't know actually if he's still playing. But yeah, so next week's games, Australia, the second leg of the Bledisloe Cup in New Zealand this time. Who are we backing?
I'm going to go for New Zealand.
I'm going to go, if New Zealand get a red card.
And another red card.
And no, if Scott Barrett gets cited for and gets a 4-match ban, New Zealand will miss Scott Barrett as well for the first 2 games of the World Cup. And their first game is against a really good pack of forwards against South Africa. So that's gonna make their lineouts bloody damn
especially
interesting.
with Brody being doubtful for that match.
Brody's definitely gonna miss the first couple of games. He's only gonna be ready in September, middle October. Okay. So obviously we're backing. I think also backing New Zealand. Eddie backing New Zealand.
Yes, I am backing New Zealand. That is in World Rugby. That is the true test. If you can front up against New Zealand in New Zealand, if you can get a result there, I do think that New Zealand will be extra motivated for this one. I do expect Beauden Barrett to return at 10 and Richie Mo'unga to be on the bench. I also think that they will start a ball carrying winger, which they have about 15 of. So I think someone like Siva Rees will probably play, and I would expect Ben Smith to be at 15. Scott Barrett having a red card in this game means they'll probably have to play someone like Patrick Tuipulotu, who is a planet at number 4. So I still think they'll have enough to get over the Australians. I would be very interested to see who their loose two will be, since the experiment of playing 2 open sides didn't work this weekend. But yes, if I was a betting man, I would probably put my house on New Zealand winning this game. I don't think it will be at this as far as people expect. I think New Zealand by around 10 points.
Chris, for you also backing New Zealand?
Yes, Eagle, most definitely. They obviously have a point to prove this weekend. I agree with Henny. I think they'll play Barrett at 10 with a big winger on the right. So yeah, point to prove. They'll come back and beat them quite convincingly.
And then the other game is Argentina, South Africa at Loftus. I think Argentina are going to get slaughtered here. I think we're going to play our best team again. I think if Rassie plays our best team, I think he might experiment and give Franco Steyn a start maybe, or give someone like Marcel Coetzee a start, or rest some of his other big guns. And I'm fine if he does that with the forwards. I think we have a lot of depth. Hopefully someone like Luet and RG Snyman get starts. But I think still South Africa is going to come away with at least 3 or 4 scrum penalties, not one lost line out, and a couple of more tries to go along with that. Barrett?
Yes, definitely. It's a enticing lineup or matchup that we have, especially if we're going to play our fringe Springbok players, still give them one last try just before the World Cup. Then I wouldn't say close, but then it won't be humiliating for the Argentines. But if we start a full strength team, Argentina is going to have little confidence going into the World Cup.
Yeah, I think they'll struggle going into the tournament if they take a hammering at Loftus, of which there's a big possibility, because they only played one game on tour in the Rugby World Cup. So traveling from there this week is going to be a big acclimatization. Eddie?
Yes, Igor, I do think that I'm going to go watch the game on Loftus on Saturday. So yes, the brandy will be flowing, but I expect 10 or 11 changes in the Springbok lineup. I think all the fringe players will get a chance. People like Marcel Coetzee, Vincent Koch, Liso Koboko, Skalk Brits will probably play. We'll still have a very good pack in Lua de Jager and RG Snyman. So yes, I do expect Rassie to give all the fringe players a chance. But I mean, if a French player is Marcel Coetzee, then God help Argentina.
Can I retract my previous statement? I just remembered Sia Kolisi is going to be leading the troops. French players or not, it's going to be a slaughter. 50 points for South Africa, with Sia lifting some other cup. Might not be the Webb Ellis, but you'll do that anyway later on. So,
Chris, for you, do you agree with Barrett?
100%. Looking at the French players, I would really like to see Marcel Coetzee have a start. I think it's between him and Kwagga Smith for the last loose forward place going to the World Cup. I rate Marcel Coetzee highly, and I want to see him give a few minutes under his belt. So I'm expecting a big performance from him, and hopefully that will get him into that World Cup squad.
Ahead of Francois Lowe, that's been on the bench all this.
Well, Barrett, they choose 5 loose forwards for the World Cup, and there's obviously going to be Dwayne, Pieter-Steph, and Sia. And then the 4th one will most probably be Francois Lowe, and the 5th one is going to be between Kwagga, Marcel Coetzee, and Reinhard Alstad. So I'm rooting for Marcel Coetzee, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. You guys heard it here first. If you're a betting man, go and throw your house mortgage on South Africa at Loftus this weekend. And on New Zealand as well, playing in New Zealand against Australia. And we'll see you guys next week where we unpack the games we just spoke about again. And have a great sporty week, sports fans.